Type Moon is known for many franchises in Japan, but if you ask Western audiences, you're really only going to get one answer. Fate Stay Night, Fate Zero, Fate Grand Order. But they're branching out and starting to bring some of their other franchises to the English world, many of which have appeared in the sort of crossover fighting game Melty Blood. What we're talking about today is a big visual novel that is a part of their universe. Originally released a decade ago, let's dive into the story of a boy and two witches. Here is my review of Witch on the Holy Night for the Nintendo Switch. This story is not about just one character. It's about three. Aoko Aozaki, a young girl with a fiery temper, Alice, Aoko's quiet and cold roommate, and Sanjiro, a boy in a new world, having grown up in the mountains without electricity and now surrounded by modern technology he doesn't know anything about. The tale is about these three having their fates intertwined and involved in a big mess of magic and witches. And I say there are multiple pro-tags because the story constantly swaps perspectives between Aoko and Sanjiro. They're kind of both the protagonist. Now the story here, it's really good. The dynamic between Aoko and Sanjiro and just everything that happens to set up the world and the events that develop the characters is well done and really interesting. This is one of those games that doesn't just have magic in it, but you get an explanation of what the magic is, what types of magic there are, who can use them, and how they use them. Nearly every question I had about this world as the story played out got answered in the game. And how far the game goes to explain is both a good and a bad thing. I think the way they developed the characters and character interactions was great. And the way many of the action scenes was described and progressed helped you really get into just what was going on when all of the craziness is going on screen. However, the game does tend to get a little long-winded and some scenes take too much time in exploring and explaining. Some parts of the game seem to explain and re-explain some things to the point where they drag on just a little too long. It's still interesting information, but it has a lot of fluff that could easily have been cut to make the scenes feel a little better on pacing. When it comes to gameplay, this is a visual novel. As you trek through it, you'll navigate story scenes and just enjoy this tale of a boy, two girls, and magic. Now with this being a remaster, we have mostly redone visuals in HD, fully voiced dialogue, and a couple extra side stories that take place during the main plot of the game. It's a decent amount of extras for those that just want a little bit more time to spend with these characters. We've also got some nice but standard features. You have stuff like auto advanced text, skipping text, hard saves, and jumping around in the text history. Though handheld players will be pleased to know that there are excellent touch controls built in. Tap the screen and you get a handy top menu to toggle between the different text advancement modes without using physical buttons. And there's really not much else to say about the gameplay. The main story of this game doesn't have any dialogue choices or interactivity. You just go from scene to scene, and it isn't until the post-game 1 year later side story that we actually get choices and different endings. This game is really just meant for you to relax and enjoy the story. And that brings us to content and length. This is a pretty beefy adventure. It'll take you about 20 hours to complete the main story, at which point you have a few side stories to go through. There's a big one that takes place a year after the main game, and many smaller ones that take place during the main story. Add all of that on and you'll be looking at more like 30 to 35 hours. If you're looking for a lengthy tale, you've got it right here. Next up is presentation, and this is probably my favorite part of this game. Witch on the Holy Night is an extremely animated visual novel. Not in the sense of animated cutscenes like an anime, but the models are moving around and we have a ton of moving 3D effects during the magical fights. The game just does so much to make it not look like a static background with static portraits and static text. It really feels like everything comes to life with the constant camera panning, zooming, effects, and just how everything is drawn. Sometimes it's hard to tell that almost all of it is still just 2D art. The only real blemish on the presentation is that a few of the closer shots definitely didn't make it quite to the HD upscale. They're not very often, but every so often you'll see a bit of a blurry picture on screen. And when it comes to performance, no complaints. It plays perfectly from start to finish and the load times are always nice and short. So with that out of the way, let's go into battery life. Witch in the Holy Night gets a battery range of 3.5 to 4 hours on the original model, 3.5 to 4.5 on the Lite, 7 to 8 hours on the V2, and 7.5 to 9 hours on the OLED. Now, in conclusion, Witch in the Holy Night is a very well done story that you can see fit right into Type Moon's universe, from the art style to what happens within it. The only real blemish of this tale is how long-winded it can get when it tries to contextualize and recontextualize things over and over. But if you're good with long stories and understanding everything about the world, it shows you it's a fantastic tale of friendship, magic, and witches. Reviews to go rates Witch on the Holy Night for the Nintendo Switch a 9 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.